Good morning, Manchester High School Central. At this time, we ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the fourth installment of Candidates in the Classroom. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you as a high school for how you have embarked on this journey. The best actions that a high school can take are ones that have been led by students and that give students exposure to real-world education. And that does not happen everywhere. But I am proud to say, as your principal, it does happen at Manchester High School Central. So I thank you. So at this point in time, I ask you to continue to be the respectful individuals you are as we have the opportunity to have a candidate with us today, speak with us, listen to questions that were created by you guys, with an assembly, once again, that was made by the students. So I thank you for that. Please give a warm, warm welcome to all of our speakers, and go Central Pride.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Vaccarezza. My name is Matthew Blair, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the sophomore class. This year, the sophomore class officers have been working with Mr. Vaccarezza and Miss Jem to bring the Candidates in the Classroom series to Central High School. This series is designed to increase student voice, our voice, in the presidential primary process. In New Hampshire, we are fortunate to host the first in the nation presidential primary. With the primary now scheduled for February 11th and fast approaching, candidates are making the final push to get their message out. The Candidates in the Classroom series is a chance for students to be front and center in this exciting presidential process. We have invited presidential candidates from both parties to have an open dialogue with Central students. The hope is that we can together listen to the candidates, learn about their vision for America, and engage with them to get questions answered that are important to us. I am most pleased to welcome you today to the fourth assembly in the Candidates in the Classroom series. Before we begin, I would like to also introduce your sophomore class officers. Vice President Rachel Bangasimba. Treasurer Ella Tarza. And Secretary Aiden Kelly. After we hear from the candidate, there will be an opportunity for questions. With the help of Mr. McDonald, students in history classes have prepared questions for the candidate. We have questions from all grades and a wide cross-section of our student body. Today, we have the opportunity to hear from Governor Deval, the former governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Governor Patrick is running in the Democratic primary. Originally from the south side of Chicago, as a young student, Deval Patrick earned a scholarship to the prestigious Milton Academy in Massachusetts for high school. From there, he went to Harvard College and Harvard Law School. He was the first in his family to attend college or law school. Upon graduation, he joined the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and led the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. As the Assistant Attorney General, he worked on issues including racial profiling and led the investigation of arson at black churches across the South. In 2006, he won a landslide victory, becoming the first black governor of Massachusetts. During his lengthy tenure, he led Massachusetts' growing economy and focused on job creation. Under his leadership, Massachusetts ranked first in the nation in student achievement, energy efficiency, and healthcare coverage. In 2015, he joined Bain Capital to launch an impact-driven investment fund. The fund has invested hundreds of millions of dollars to support companies that target social and environmental good. As a hallmark of his campaign, he says that because he had the opportunity to personally live the American dream, he will fight to ensure that the dream is open to everyone, everywhere. The governor says this is the time to reclaim the American dream for everyone. Please join me in welcoming Governor Deval Patrick.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Is it working? Not yet. Is it working now? There. All right. That's better. Good morning. Thank you all for having me today. Thank you very much, Matt, for the generous introduction, to you and your leadership team for your leadership, to the principal and all of the faculty who do such amazing work year after year. And thank you all for caring about this election and our democracy, because our democracy is in trouble. And we need you and your moms and dads and your brothers and sisters and your neighbors and everyone to care about our democracy. It's broken. And I say that not just because I am deeply troubled by a president I find unfit and unkind, but I'll also say I'm old-fashioned. He was not my candidate, but he is our president. Well, I told you I'm old-fashioned. I thought it was wrong when the Republican leadership in the Senate seemed to root for the failure of President Obama even during a national emergency. So I don't root for the failure of our leaders, because our leaders, we depend on them. What concerns me is the failure of his leadership. And that ought to concern all of us. As you heard, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, much of that time on welfare, with my mother, my sister, my grandparents, and various relatives who came and went in our grandparents' two-bedroom tenement. I shared one of those two bedrooms and a set of bunk beds with my mother and my sister, so you go from the top bunk to the bottom bunk to the floor every third night on the floor. The schools that I went to were big and broken and overcrowded and under-resourced and sometimes violent. I can't remember a time when I didn't love to read, but I don't remember owning a book of my very own until I was 14 years old, and as Matt described, I landed in Milton Academy on a scholarship, which for me was like landing on a different planet. You know, for all the things we didn't have on the south side of Chicago, one thing we did have was a very strong sense of community. Because that was a time when every child was under the jurisdiction of every single adult on the block. If you messed up down the street in front of Ms. Jones, she'd go upside your head. And then call home, so you got it 2 times. And I think what those adults were trying to get across to us is that membership in a community is understanding we have a stake in each other. That we belong to each other. And that we are supposed to do in our time what we can to leave things better for those who come behind us. And so I start there because throughout my adult life, I've tried to bring those lessons into my work, whether it was as a civil rights lawyer or head of the civil rights division, as a business lawyer or business executive in 2 Fortune 50 companies in the business I founded, and certainly as governor of Massachusetts. And coming to office right when the recession hit, when the bottom fell out of the global economy, we went to work building community. And that's why after 8 years in office, I'm proud of the fact that we invested in the public schools at the highest level in the history of the Commonwealth right through the recession, and students repaid that trust by bringing us #1 nation-leading achievement year after year after year and closing achievement gaps. I'm proud of the fact that 98.5% of the people in Massachusetts have health insurance today. No other state can touch that. I'm proud of the fact that we are #1 in America in veterans services, in energy efficiency as a part of our response to climate change. Also in entrepreneurial activity, and that we came out of recession at a 25-year high. We didn't get everything right, nobody does. But the point is, because we ask people to turn to each other rather than on each other, we are able to look back at having done all we could to leave things better than we found them. And I'm proud of that, because I've never had a job just to have it. I've had jobs to do them. And in the case of previous governors in Massachusetts, we hadn't had governors really interested in doing the job. And that's really why I'm running for president. I feel like there are all kinds of opportunities that our current president uses to divide us, not to unite us, not to encourage us to reach forward, and as we do, to reach back, but to find all kinds of ways to turn us on each other for political gain. We've had other opportunities, other moments like this in our history in America, where at a time of economic anxiety and social unease, we've had leaders who've come and sought to divide us for political gain. We've also had leaders who have used this moment to unite us, moments like this. Both of them are, historically speaking, American. Only one is patriotic. And so if we're gonna deal with the underlying truths, the things that divide us, the things that make us anxious, the fact that unemployment, we are told, is low, but only if you count both or all three of the minimum wage jobs that folks have to survive. That inflation, we are told, is low so long as you don't count what it costs to house yourself, or to educate yourself, or health care for that matter, the very things that enable people to lift themselves and move forward. That young people, like so many of you, are trapped either by student debt or by a criminal record. That there are folks in suburbs who are making ends meet using credit cards and food pantries. There are people in small towns and rural communities whose children are having to move away to make a way. Not everything in America is broken. But when you see that, when you see those realities in how people actually live their lives, then a central part of America is broken. And that, to me, is our access to, meaningful access to the American dream. That is worth fighting for. And unlike the other very, very good candidates on the Democratic side in this race, all of us have great ideas. I have results. And that's what I hope we talk about today. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. Look forward to the question.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
My name is Gloria Niyamahara, and I'm a freshman. My question today
Did you
is...
say Gloria?
Yes.
Gloria.
My question today is, what encouraged you to run for president, and what are some challenges that you have faced?
What encouraged me to run for president, and what are some challenges I face? So you know, it's not like I always wanted to be president, to tell you the truth. We don't have term limits in Massachusetts. I have a term limit named Diane, and she said 2 terms and you have to come home. And I was enjoying the new business I'd started, and I had a lot of friends in this field, and had been active in the midterms, helping other candidates. And it was in the midterms where I was active in the so-called red to blue districts, meaning places where Democrats had not been successful for a long time. And I went and I helped great progressives make the case, not for the party's victory, but for their neighbors' victory and for the nation's victory. And I thought, you know, I have something I can contribute here. So I thought about getting in about a year ago, actually, and right before we were ready to roll, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And so we rethought that. She is today cancer-free, praise God. Thank you. And I've continued to watch, and I've been worried because I think we have been bullied for a long time as Democrats and as Americans, and that we're reacting sometimes the way people who have been bullied do. We sort of swing from rage to to resignation. You know, get even or just get over. And I think we have to be bigger than that, and that's what I'm trying to bring. Thank you.
Good morning. On
Good
behalf
morning.
of somebody else who couldn't be here, I was wondering what are some problems that you recognize in America's public school system, and how do you think we can fix these problems?
Great. Tell me your first name. Jonas? So Jonas, did everyone get the question, by the way? Okay. Question, can I just rephrase it? Question was about problems that I see in American public education and some ideas to fix it. That fair? Okay. So a couple things. First of all, not every school is the same. Not every classroom is the same. Not every child is the same. Every student is the same. I think there is nothing to substitute for a well-prepared, well-supported, loving teacher in front of a classroom. There's nothing like it. It was transformative for me. And the numbers of teachers I meet in all kinds of public schools who are, for example, spending their own money for supplies in classrooms is deeply, I mean, that's just indicative of a lack of consistent support. I think there are issues about you know, the sort of high stakes strategy that we used in Massachusetts, the testing and so forth. I think it's time to reconsider that. I think it's had a lot of good come from it, but there's some things that are missing, especially if we're constrained in terms of the length of the school day and the size of classes. If I had my druthers, now here's where everyone will groan, I think the school day should be longer. I don't think, well, hang on. I don't think it necessarily, hang on. I don't think it necessarily, Jonas, means that the same thing should happen for more hours. But experiential learning, art, exercise, you know, time to do your homework. There are all kinds of things the whole neighborhood used to do for kids that now we are relying on schools to do in many communities. And so I do think we should be more creative about how we use the school building and the time and how we bring additional resources, people, innovation, ideas into schools, and try to make it as individual as possible because everybody learns differently. Thank you.
Hello, Governor Patrick. My name is Owen Kelly. I'm a freshman here at Central.
Hey, Owen.
I would like to know what you're going to do about the $23 trillion in debt we have in America.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question, Owen. Owen is very popular, apparently. It's interesting, the question of the debt comes up almost always in the time I've been in New Hampshire from young people, not from older voters. And I've thought about it in a couple of ways. I think, I'll start by saying I think a whole tax system needs an overhaul, and I have some ideas about that. You do not cut taxes when governments are doing the most expensive things they do, like go to war, and deliver other kinds of benefits that people say that they need. So the tax cuts we've had, not just this most recent one, but the one during George W. Bush's term, were completely irresponsible. My answer to that would be, among other things, to raise the estate tax, meaning, so the inheritance tax, if you will. I think of that as what we call non-recurring revenues, so revenues that go up and down. They're unlike the income or corporate tax, which are more regular. And I would use a portion of that to pay down existing student debt. So I think of that as one-time things. And I would use some of that as well to start to pay down the deficit, or the national debt, rather. The other thing we have to do is grow the economy, because growth is a part of that answer, and I have some other strategies for that. Is that helpful? Thank you. They told me the record is 16 of the 20 questions, so I'm supposed to shorten my answers so I can get through more of the questions. Hi.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
My question today is, what will you do to regulate gun safety to limit the number of gun deaths in America?
To reduce the number of gun deaths, gun-related deaths? Thank you. Question about gun-related deaths. So, gun safety is a profoundly concerning problem all over the country, and you know there is actually a national consensus about some of the things to do. You know, I certainly think we should ban assault weapons, and we should ban the adaptations that are used, you know, these bump stocks and stuff like that, to make a regular long gun into an assault-style weapon. I think we should have a national registry and national background checks. We should close the gun show loophole. We should eliminate straw purchases where you can send somebody else in who is able to buy guns and then have that person buy a crate of them and turn them over to somebody who isn't supposed to have guns. There's a tremendous amount of consensus nationally around all of those things. The reason it doesn't move in the Congress is because we have a broken democracy. It's back to where I started. And that's why the very first thing I would file if I'm president is something we call the democracy agenda, which is about ending the gerrymandering and the money, so much of it dark in politics, the influence of lobbyists, the vote suppression and voter purging, the things that we have done or permitted over time that prevent us from getting democratic outcomes from our democracy. That has to be fixed, because some of these things, and gun safety would be at the top of the list, where there is broad national consensus, they don't happen because the system is broken, and it's been broken on purpose. And we, all of us, need to take responsibility for fixing it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chriselle, and my question for you is...
Did you say Giselle?
Chriselle.
Chriselle, I'm sorry.
That's okay. My question for you is, what does the American dream mean to you, and how can you help every American achieve it?
A question about what the American dream means to me and how do we help people achieve it. So for me, Chrisan, the American dream means being able to imagine a different destination for yourself and then to reach for it. To have the education, have the training, have the opportunity to build toward that, to earn that better tomorrow for yourself and your family, and not to be limited by your zip code of birth, so that you have that choice. And I think that means we have to do a number of things. We have to invest in education, pre-K, right through public colleges and universities. I think $1 spent in education is the best dollar the public spends on its own best interest and brighter future. Every single dollar. I think it means we have to own this innovation economy, the knowledge economy, and spread it out so that there are those kinds of opportunities in every part of the country, and I have some ideas about that. And I think we have to do the unglamorous work of governing, which is investing in roads, rails, bridges, broadband expansion, the sort of hard infrastructure and the social infrastructure that make it possible for people wherever they are and whomever they are to have access to what it takes, those stepping stones, to build a future for yourself. So that's it. It's not, you know, a lot of people used to say, oh, it's got to be a house and 2 cars and suburbs and all that sort of thing. That may or may not be your American dream. But your ability to say, you know, this is what I'd like to try to do, and here's what my contribution ought to be to my own better life and my communities. And here that we, all of us, ought to be responsible for making sure you have the tools to build that. That's what I think the American dream's about. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Kagan, and my question is...
Say your first name again. Say your first name again.
Kagan.
Kagan.
My question is, what are your thoughts on legalization of marijuana?
What are my thoughts on the legalization of marijuana? Probably about time. I mean, that was pretty straightforward. It's probably about time, probably past time, actually. States have moved there, and states, including my own in Massachusetts. The fact that the federal government hasn't makes the question of what states do compromised or complicated, so that is one reason. But the second is that, you know, the criminalization of marijuana has had a disproportionate impact on a whole lot of people in sentencing and in the compromising of their futures. So I think that also recommends we move quickly. And then as we do, I think we have to fix our sentencing laws, and we have to go back and fix the criminal records of the people who were caught up in minor marijuana-related offenses. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Governor.
Good morning.
My name is Declan Ryan, and I'm
Declan.
a freshman here at Central.
Great.
My question for you is, how would you propose a well-funded plan to cut down carbon emissions in a way to benefit the American people and create a bright future for younger generations?
I love that question. Thank you very much. Question about a brighter and I would say carbon-free future. So I would build, first of all, on some of the things that we did in Massachusetts. We joined the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is a carbon trade, cap and trade system here in this region. We did that on the first day I was in office. We used all of the proceeds from the auctions to invest in energy efficiency at home. And so that was subsidies for working people and others who were trying to get tighter windows and insulation in their homes and so on. That also created a whole bunch of jobs, and it was one of the reasons why we're #1 in energy efficiency. We eliminated, we shut down the remaining coal-fired power plants. There are no more coal-powered plants in Massachusetts, and we generated more than enough in alternative energy to meet a growing economy and the needs of a growing economy, more families moving in and so forth. I think we went from, I want to say about 400,000 megawatts of alternative energy generated when I first took office to 4.7 million megawatts of alternative energy. Most of that solar, some wind in that time. I think those are all strategies we can expand nationally. There are other alternatives and this is to the point I was making earlier about an innovation economy, that need to be given fuel to flourish. You know, they need to be given encouragement, capital. There's wave technology, there's offshore wind that's taking hold, there's storage research, battery development that I think is critically important. We should also rejoin the Paris Accords, and we need to step up those goals so we accelerate our movement forward. We probably need an international group to hold to account all of the commitments under the Paris Accords. It's arm's length, a third-party sort of group. And then I think we should be intentional about bringing along folks who feel threatened by a move to a carbon-free future. For example, you know, I'd love to be able to go to coal country and make the point, look, you know, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. We got a better idea. And the carbon age, we have to think about that the same way. We have a better idea. So I know you feel threatened, but how do we bring you along? How about you take the wind development, the wind blade manufacturing part of this new brave world, so folks don't feel like it's like innovation is happening to them, but they are a part of it. And I think the opportunity to transition that way is both responsible and more likely to get national buy-in in dealing with what is really a climate emergency. Thank you. Hi, Rachel.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
So my question for you today is, on the news every day, we see reports of conflict in the Middle East and rising tension around the globe with North Korea, China, and Russia. What would you do to strengthen the American military, and what measures would you go to make sure we would not have to use it?
So the question, you talked about the conflicts, some of the hot spots, as they say, around the world, and then you asked me the question about what I would do to strengthen the American military. I'm going to broaden my answer beyond the military. The military is part of it. But I think our security and our strength in the world, alongside our military and economic strength, is our values. Our foundational commitments to equality, opportunity, and fair play. In my experience abroad, the more faith we show in those values at home, the stronger we are abroad. And so dealing with, intentionally, the gap between our reality and those ideals at home is a part of improving our stature and our ability to compete in every way and to contribute globally. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is relationships matter. You know, in business, I would tell people when I take them on official trade missions overseas or otherwise, you have to make friends before you make money. Turns out you have to make friends before you make peace too, right? You have to build relationships, sometimes before you need them. So renewing old relationships in Western Europe, NATO, and WTO, incredibly important, strengthening those. But we've been missing opportunities to make new relationships in Africa and Latin America. By the way, China has been moving in while we've been sitting here saying, you know, we're all that, you know, and not engaging. So I think this idea of building bridges is critical. And then the third thing I would say is we have to do more and more in coalition. This is a great country, no doubt about it. But the scale of the challenges that face humankind, the nuclear threat from North Korea, as you mentioned, the complexities in the Middle East, climate change. Let me tell you, you think we have a refugee problem right now? Fail to deal with climate change, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Because the most vulnerable people in the world are right in harm's way. So we have to think about how we do more problem solving in coalition. And I've got some examples of that, but I was admonished to be short. People will look to us, I think, not just because we have a strong military, which I believe can be made stronger by being more innovative, and not just because we have a strong economy, although they will look elsewhere if we keep picking trade wars with our friends. They look to us because we don't always, but we can speak with a different kind of moral authority if we show faith at home and abroad in those foundational values. And that's the kind of leadership I want to bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Governor Patrick. My name is Genesis, and I'm a senior.
Genesis.
And my question for you are, what are your views on current immigration policies, and what, if any, will you do to improve them?
Thank you, Genesis. My views on current immigration policies is back to my question, to the point about values. We are so much better than what we're doing. It's, you know, we don't need to dehumanize people to enforce the laws. We need better laws. We definitely need better laws. But in some ways, it feels to me like the only reason we don't have a comprehensive solution is because one side of the equation wants the problem, not a solution. They want to be able to trivialize and demean people for political reasons, not because not that they actually want to solve the challenges we face. I'd say, first of all, under the rubric of comprehensive reform, I believe we have to have a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million people who are here now and living in the shadows and contributing. And I think we got to bring people out of the shadows and into the light. That pathway isn't just, you know, here you go. It's got to have some steps. You know, it has to have. And we had a pretty good model on the table about 4, 5, 6 years ago. Now I think that model still has a lot to recommend it. We also need border security. I don't believe that it has to be a wall. I think there are better, more effective ways to use technology to secure the borders, but secure borders are appropriate. And we should deal with the reason why we have undocumented people coming in to the United States, other than through the legal challenges. There is an issue with violence in certain Central American countries. When we invest in violence prevention, we have seen before, that ebbs the flow. We have, generally speaking, a legal system which is not up to date. It takes too long to get an answer. It takes too long to get permission to come in. There is not adequate treatment of folks who are trying to renew their visas. You gotta, in many cases, go all the way home to do, in most countries you don't have to, right? You don't have to go home and start all over again. And we have a whole host of, I met one person who said, you know, for every person who comes here to study, for example, we should staple a green card to their diploma when they graduate, because there is so much talent who want to be here and contribute, and why wouldn't we express an open and welcome approach to that? So the last thing I'm going to say is this, at the risk of running on. We were dealing with a crisis at the southern border in my last year in office, very much like this one, with all these unaccompanied kids coming, fleeing violence thousands of miles away, coming by themselves, some as young as 5 and 6 years old. And the federal authorities were overwhelmed then, just like now. And President Obama asked a number of governors if we would shelter the kids for a period of time while they were being processed as refugees. And I agreed. And you know, immigration was hot then politically as it is now. But I explained my reasons at home as coming from a place of both patriotism and faith. Patriotism because we have sheltered children in need in this country for centuries. And when we haven't, like when we turned the ship full of Jewish children back to face their death in the Holocaust, or frankly what we're doing today at the southern border, it remains a blight on our national reputation. Reasons of faith, because in my faith tradition we were taught that we will be judged by how we treat the least of these. And then, I mean, to me it's just, how can you not pay attention to children in despair? Even so, I was called everything but a child of God. My point, though, is that I learned through an experience out and about some while later how much support there was from people who whispered to me, you know, you're doing the right thing. Thanks for sticking up for those kids. How the calls to the office were 2 and 3 to 1 in favor of sheltering those children, and it struck me we have come to shout our anger and to whisper our kindness, and it's completely upside down. We've got to learn again to shout our kindness and our compassion and our justice. That, I think, is what makes America great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
My name is Erin LaFlamme. I am a freshman here at Central High. My question for you today is, what will you do to protect the reproductive rights of women in America?
What will I do to protect the reproductive rights of women in America? I spent a lot of my career on that very issue, protecting the reproductive rights of women in America. To me, that is an issue that ought to be beyond question and will be if I am president. We will give the resources to our enforcement agencies, including the Civil Rights Division, to do their job. But we will also make sure that as we strengthen healthcare and assure that it reaches everyone everywhere, that reproductive care is an essential and central part of healthcare. Certain decisions belong in the intimacy of individuals on their own, and government is just not very good at involving itself in those kinds of decisions, and reproductive rights to me is exactly that kind of decision. So you count on me there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Aiden.
I'm Aiden Kelly. I'm a sophomore here at Central. All of the front runners in the Democratic field are all 70 years or older. Do you think there should be an age limit when running for president?
That's not the reason I think they shouldn't be front runners, if that's what they are. Look, it's a demanding job. You're never really off duty, and there are all kinds of surprises. that come up. You know, I had a completely different plan for how I was going to spend the day the bombs went off at the Boston Marathon, for example. You have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to focus. You have to be able to set aside everything else because things come up, and you have to keep your head under circumstances like that. So I guess my answer is probably no, because I don't think chronological age is necessarily the determinant of that. And I love the fact that there are more and more of us who are younger, and more of you, younger still, who are saying, you know what, I got a voice here, I have something to contribute here, and I'm not going to wait until somebody tells me it's my turn, that we're going to say right now, it's my time. Because, you know, in a democracy that's functioning, we get the government we deserve. And we deserve better than what we have right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello, Government Patrick. My name is Saha Guzera. I'm
Saha.
a freshman, and my question is, how do you think your experience as a former governor of Massachusetts will help you if you're elected president?
How will my experience as former governor help me as president?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in a bunch of ways. First of all, as I was saying in my introduction, you know, the issues that we've been talking about in this campaign season, that everybody's been talking about in this campaign season, the issues around universal health care, around sentencing reform, around climate change, around education to some extent. In my case, also around economic growth. I don't hear that so much from others, but it's on our agenda as well. Unlike the others, they're not abstractions for me. I've actually worked on these issues. I understand some of the decisions that have to be made, and I understand how to get to yes while bringing along others. Because I think you have to, my experience teaches, you have to be bold in the objectives, but also confident enough to allow other voices to come in and teach you and contribute to how you achieve those goals. A second is, I've learned to reject false choices. You know, I'm a proud Democrat. I don't think you have to hate Republicans to be a good Democrat. I don't think you have to hate business to be a social justice warrior. I don't think you have to hate police to believe Black Lives Matter. We do this all the time. We set up these competing slogans, and it makes people, you know, retreat to the corner their slogan represents. We need to get past that and get down to the business of solving problems. And if you're interested, as I am, in policy where it actually touches people, not just winning the debate points, but actually touches people, that is something that comes from having actually had to make those decisions and deliver those kinds of progressive results, and I think that gives me a leg up on any other candidate in this race. Thank you.
Good morning,
Good
Governor
morning.
Patrick. My name is Lily Mayhew, and I'm a freshman this year.
Excellent.
And my question today for you is, how do you feel about families being split up at the border? If you become president, what would, if anything, would you do to modify this process?
Yeah. Well, just to return to one of the things I was saying earlier, we can't call ourselves a nation dedicated to the civic values of equality, opportunity, and fair play, and behave as we are behaving at the southern border right now. I think separating children and families is a needlessly cruel. It's just, I mean, it's unconscionable. And the fact that it was happening for as long as it was happening and is still happening ought to give us some pause, all of us some pause, and reflect on what happens to us. How has our own outrage been numbed by the fact that it just keeps going? At the very beginning, children were separated, and there was no idea how to reunite them with their parents because no records had been kept. And imagine that as a lifetime impact on those children. I hope that we find a way ultimately to reconnect them, but the fact that we undertook something like this, why? Why? As a way to discourage people from seeking refuge from violence? What kind of country does that? Certainly not one that is dedicated to the ideals we say we are. So that ends day one, I can tell you that. But we got more work to do beyond that. And that would be in that department of false choices, that somehow we have to demean people who are coming across the border in order to have secure borders. Don't buy that, people. It's just not so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Governor.
Hi.
My name is Alyssa Bonney, and I'm I'm a freshman here at Central High School. As president, what would you do to make healthcare more readily available to the citizens of the United States?
Great. So, as I said, we got health care to 98.5% of our residents, 100% of children. And we got it there because, one, this broad coalition of policymakers and providers and doctors and hospitals and insurers and patient advocates and the faith community came together to invent this reform because they believed, and I do, that providing basic health care to every man and woman is a human right and reflects the character of the kind of community we ought to wish to be. I think the same is true nationally. I think the experience of doing that tells me that you take big steps and learn from them, because Governor Romney signed the bill. It took effect the day I took office, so we implemented it. But I signed 3 or 4 major health reform bills after that because we kept learning things. And this broad coalition that had come together at the beginning stuck together to keep refining it. So that, to me, suggests, in addition to strengthening the ACA, we should add a public option. That public option might well be Medicare, but we should have an option alongside private insurance, because you get the benefit of the competitive tension, which causes the insurance industry to think of a way to compete for all those people who would move to that no-cost or low-cost public option, and that's good because it pushes down costs in the system generally. And you get the benefit on the public side of having to innovate as well. Because, for example, if Medicare is that public option, today, if you're eligible for Medicare and you buy a supplemental policy on top of that because Medicare doesn't get the job done. So we need some innovation on the public side as well. That's where I would go next, and I think we can do that quickly. And I think that contributes both to access and to driving system costs down, which, if we really mean, bless you, if we really mean that everyone should have access to affordable quality care, then we have to do both things at the same time: expand access and also drive down costs. Make sense?
Good morning, Governor Patrick. Before we close today, I have one final question to ask you.
Did we break the record already?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
If you win the election and become President of the United States of America...
Yes, I will come back.
Thank you. Thank you. We very much appreciate you taking your time to speak to our students and hear what is on our minds. On behalf of all of us here at Central High School, I have a small token of appreciation.
Thank you. What a nice piece of crepe paper you're giving me. go. Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
I would now ask the sophomore class officers, the student reps, and Ms. Jem to stay after for a few moments following the assembly. Students, you may now return to Mod C.
Thank you, everyone. Come out and vote, please.